Hi guys, welcome back to Journey Teachers. Today we are recording a very special podcast episode with Sneha Ganesh. Welcome to Journey Teachers, Sneha.
Thank you so much, Kriti. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely smile.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. It's been a very busy week and I was looking forward to this shoot. So thank you for having me here.
My pleasure. How is life? What's going on?
Life's good. I have been working very, very busily. It's been a proper corporate schedule. So it's been nice, busy, productive. So I think I'm liking it.
Where are you working at?
I work as a data analyst at MIQ.
So let's start with a brief introduction about you, maybe your educational background, where do you come from, and what are your,
All right. So I'm born and brought up in Bangalore. So just very much from here. I did all of my schooling over here and I completed my undergrad with a triple major in computer, math, and statistics. So enough to tell you, I'm a very math person, very logic person. That end of my brain is what functions the most. But I also realized somewhere along the way that that was not the only thing I wanted to do. And I also wanted to have enough of the creative side of me functioning, which is how I started to do a lot more of extracurricular. So as much as my day job involves math right now, I work as an analyst. I make sure I have enough of the other end of it too, in terms of my public speaking engagements, in terms of training, and also in terms of writing. And I'm sure we'll delve into all of this in the course of today's talk. So yes.
So I think Sneha has already covered and kind of announced the themes of our podcast. We'll be covering a lot about public speaking, writing, her training sessions, and all of that. So, do you love maths?
I love math.
What do you want to tell people who don't love maths, who are afraid, जिनको हवा है maths का?
वो ना वैसे हर किसी को होता है, मेरे को भी एक टाइम में हुआ करता था. But I think what helped me get over the fear was just an understanding and a love for the subject, because honestly math's simple. Like math fundamentally is simple. चलो जो कॉलेज में पढ़ाते हैं वो सब थोड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है, मना नहीं करने वाली हूँ. मैं तो मैथ में मेजर करके आई हूँ, so it's obviously very difficult. But I think one thing that you just remember to make most of anything which you find difficult, starting with math, is just start liking it, start falling in love with it. It'll automatically seem easy.
How did you overcome that hawa with maths? What was your story?
I think it was a teacher for me. So I had this teacher in school who, so she saw in me this love for math, but also this immense amount of fear for math. And she used to sit with me after classes every day to help me understand. She would give me extra questions to solve. She'd call me up on board in front of the whole class and make me solve questions, because she knew I could solve it. It's just that I was so afraid that I would not try hard enough. And I think it was that teacher which made the huge transition for me. This was like, I think when I was in 5th, 6th grade, and there's been no looking back. I was the kid students hated. I was your class topper. There hasn't been a single math paper I haven't got 100 in. So I was that kid for you, and I think that's what made the difference.
Wow, that's crazy. So what about your college experiences? How has your college life been?
It's been amazing. I think there's not a single thing about my college life that I would change, except for a little bit of COVID that happened. So like I was 1.5 years was online for me, so that was a little hard. But otherwise, college has been wonderful. I love the course that I did. Of course, I love the university. I love the people I got to meet, and also the kind of exposure and the additional things that I got to do in the course of college, which I think made the experience a lot more enriching for me.
So since in college, I know you from college itself, and you were a part of CAPS.
Correct.
You took training sessions as a group pair trainer.
Correct.
So how was that experience?
It was lovely. So if there's one thing anybody has to know about me, it's just that I love talking. So if you put me in a room and you hear a lot of noise from any part of that room, just know that I'm there. So I'm that person for you who loves talking, and any opportunity to talk was something I would always say yes to. I think it was that for me with peer training. It was an opportunity for me to be on stage and to talk to people. And it was just that basically. But then eventually I realized that through the work that I was doing, I also had the opportunity to create an impact, to help people learn something new. And I think that's what made it so much more, that was a driving force for me, to be very honest. And the experience was great. I got to meet lovely people like you. I got to work with a lot of amazing peer trainers, and I got to engage a lot of students. And I think at the end of the day, when you see somebody benefiting from what you're doing, even if it's one person, that really makes it heartwarming. And it was that for me.
Wow, that's amazing. So since you were taking the training sessions and you specialized, you finally got that your thing to train and to talk about is LinkedIn. So how did you go about it? How did you recognize that LinkedIn is one platform which I want to talk about, which I want people to understand about?
So I think like anybody else, my journey with LinkedIn was very accidental, so to say. So people say, okay, हर कोई बात कर रहा है LinkedIn के बारे में, हम भी प्रोफाइल बना लेते हैं. मैंने भी वही किया था. मैंने प्रोफाइल बना तो लिया था, but then I found the platform very fascinating because I knew there was so much to do with it. So my mom had an account and she said, बना लो तुम भी. तो मैंने बना लिया अपना account. And then when I started approaching people on the platform, I started looking at their profiles, the kind of work that they do. I realized that there's so much that I can do with this platform. And that's how my journey with LinkedIn started. I started understanding that there's so much I can do, not just for myself, but in terms of personal, professional, branding, my offerings, and just in general, reaching out to a global community of people sitting at home and to be able to put my best foot forward. So I think that's how I started learning the platform. I was always a learner when I began. And when I started doing it and I realized that I was doing a pretty good job with it, people started reaching out with questions on how they can make their profiles better. So it was just that simple question answer with people. And I realized that when I started doing it, I would sit with my friends in class and I'd help them make their profiles look better. And by the end of it, the profile actually looked good. I was like, okay, मैं तो अच्छा काम कर रही हूँ. And that's how I slowly started extrapolating this to larger groups. And then I started doing it with CAPS in terms of other courses. And then I eventually moved to other colleges. And today I do it at a global level. So I think that's been the journey.
Wow, that's crazy. So are you still a learner while teaching LinkedIn to others?
I think we'll always remain learners. I learn every day from every person on the platform, from every news article that comes out. So yes, always a learner.
So what are the specifics if you want to, tell people about LinkedIn? Why should they go on LinkedIn? And is it just a professional platform to just boast about your achievements, or is it much more?
So LinkedIn doesn't have one definition, and that is for sure. So every time I take these training sessions, I will ask questions, and there are two standard answers. One is it's a job search platform. I will go there, I will put my resume, I will get a job. And the second one is, oh yeah, हर कोई जिंदगी में कुछ ना कुछ कर देता है, फिर आके यहाँ पे डाल देता है. And that is not all there is to it. You do not have to have a daily achievement to post about. You do not have to be searching for a job. That's not your two only outcomes from LinkedIn. So LinkedIn as a platform, very basically, is nothing more than a networking tool. It's an opportunity for you to connect with a very large and a very diverse audience group. And just the fact that you get to connect with people across the globe, so many countries, so many diverse experiences, career backgrounds, things that they do. And honestly, the world is fascinating. There is so much out there. So I think that's what the platform is for me. Very fundamentally, the ability to connect with people, to share what I'm doing, to learn from others. But most importantly, for you to have a network you can back on for anything. So it doesn't have to be very selfish, so to say, कि okay, मैं आज सेशन करने वाली हूँ, मैं चाहती हूँ कि 10 लोग अटेंड करें, तो मैं सेशन पोस्ट करने वाली हूँ, लोग अटेंड करने वाले. That's not all there is to it. Like हम ये पॉडकास्ट शूट करेंगे, हम तो of course LinkedIn पे डालेंगे, but that's not the only aim. Our aim is to reach a large number of people with the message that we're trying to offer, and that's what the platform gives to you. And I mean, चलो आजकल तो Instagram पे भी डाल देते हैं, Facebook पे भी डाल देते हैं, WhatsApp पे भी लोग डाल देते हैं. But I feel LinkedIn gives you a very different touch in terms of it is a very professional platform, and the kind of communication, the kind of people you get to meet here, the kind of interactions that you have, these are very professional in nature. And when you're able to find the right balance between what you want to share from your personal experiences and give it that professional flavor, that is something LinkedIn really as a platform enables you to boost.
That's amazing. I think there's a hidden power in LinkedIn
Absolutely.
which it has. So do you aim to be a top voice on LinkedIn?
So, I mean, it's not an intentional goal I'm walking towards. Like I said, for me, the platform is just my ability to share what I know and for somebody out there to be able to learn from what I'm doing. So, it's not really something I look forward to. But of course, if through all the things that I'm sharing with all of you, and if the audience likes it, and eventually that enables me to get the top voice badge, why not?
So that's an additional bonus which you can
Absolutely,
have for yourself.
yes.
So, did LinkedIn help you to build your own personal brand? What was it about?
Significantly. Like, I mean, absolutely. Especially in today's world with everything, mainly after COVID, moving to hybrid and so much of things being virtual. starting from conferences and conversations. I'm so glad we're doing this in person because like 2 years back, the number of them we've done just on Zoom calls with two tiny boxes. That's all we've done. So I think compared to that, moving to and transitioning to this hybrid world, that has been something that LinkedIn's really helped me in building a brand, because when I started off on LinkedIn, I started off with blog posts that I used to write. So I started writing when I was, I think, 13. That's when I started writing. And I moved into LinkedIn just to post about them. So like everybody else, I made this WordPress page. I used to post my vlogs there. And I would just take the link of that and put it on LinkedIn saying, okay, मैं ये कर रही हूँ. और दुनिया को बताने की कोशिश करती थी. But then eventually that slowly started building on for me. And I started doing these very short interviews with people. So we haven't mentioned it yet in the conversation, but I used to work with Aspire for her. And in the course of when I used to work with them, I had the opportunity to speak to a lot of senior leaders, to understand about their journeys, to understand about the kind of things that they do in their daily jobs, and just get inspiration from people who've been there, done that. So I started by just attending these sessions. Then I had the opportunity to be on the side where I was interviewing them, asking them questions. So I'd have a standard set of 5-6 questions that I would ask them. Har baar wahi karti thi. But then slowly I started talking about this on the platform, and people started recognizing my interest in having these conversations and having these interactions. And eventually, obviously, the quality of my content did improve, but the kind of stuff I started doing also improved. So when I came into Christ and I started doing sessions for CAPS, I started posting about those, with the only intention being that in the course of this, here's what I had the opportunity to share, here's what I had the opportunity to learn, because from every session, we're also learning. So that was how it slowly kept building for me. And like I said, the platform's amazing. The community out there is absolutely robust. And they started recognizing what I was doing. And I started having people reach out to me to further amplify what I was doing. So I used to just train within Christ, but people realized that I was adding value, and I started getting called to institutes outside of Christ. And then I've trained even in corporates today. So I think that whole building of the brand, it started with that one tiny blog, that one blog post that I posted. 2 लोगों ने like किया था, एक तो मेरी मम्मी थी. So that's all there was. It started there. And it's a consistent effort. We've kept doing it, I think, over the last 2.5 years now. I've been doing this very structured manner. And it's obviously helped build my brand, but I think it's also helped me in some way get recognized by the community, and that's what makes a huge difference to me.
Wow, the journey is like, really wonderful. From where you started from, and now you're just literally going to the corporates, going to various colleges and training students about LinkedIn. That's so wholesome. So you mentioned that you have worked for Aspire for her, and it was during your college days.
Correct.
So how did you manage time? How did you because Christ is hectic and Christ offers a lot of things. Along with extracurriculars also you were very active in. So how did you go about doing a job with Aspire for her?
Alright, so I mean, on a lighter note, you ask any of my friends, they'll tell you I have an actual productivity crisis. मैं सोती नहीं हूँ, मैं बस काम करती रहती हूँ. मैं सोती हूँ, मैं ऐसी भी नहीं हूँ. But I think a few things for me. One was just understanding and identifying the passion that when I was doing something, I genuinely loved what I was doing. And I realized that as soon as I started feeling that about something, I didn't feel tired. I didn't necessarily feel like it was a job. It felt like something I was doing which made me happy. So that was the most important thing, I think, for me. In terms of time management, it all came down to simple prioritization. So we all know Christ is very hectic. So of course I had all my CIAs, we had assignments, we had exams every other day. We had fests in college, and then I had all of my work as well. So just for me to be able to list down saying, today I have 20 things to finish. Now of those 20, what is most important? And that comes right on top of the list. And what can I do alongside what I'm doing right now? So I think 2 of the biggest learnings for me when it came to just understanding how to manage time, which I think most of our audience can also apply, is 1, prioritization, and 2, just for you to kind of understand that, let's say, if here's what I have to do today, and if I have 20 tasks and I have only 24 hours, how can I effectively multitask? What can I do to make sure that I'm not losing out on the quality of the output I deliver? But at least for me, what worked when I was multitasking was my brain was extra active. So if I was going to spend 2 hours writing out an assignment, I would do another thing along with it. Just so I do this in 1 hour and I do that in 1 hour, and I put both of them together. It's like how some of us, when we're, let's say, studying, we listen to music because it helps us focus more. So for me, that focus is I did 2 or 3 things the same time. And that's something which helped me. But I think a simple time management hack for all of us is prioritization and understanding effective multitasking. Don't burn yourself out. If you realize it's becoming too much, take the breaks that you need. Do not take on more than you can do. Just because I did 20 does not mean everybody has to do 20. Just find what you genuinely love, find what makes you happy, find what makes you feel like you're satisfying a purpose, and then go behind it.
I feel like if you are eventually happy in what you are doing, you will be able to prioritize it and, put in your 100%.
Correct.
Along with managing a lot of other things as you did college
absolutely.
and, other things.
Yeah.
So what was your role? What was, your contribution in the project?
So in the course of what I did at Aspire for Her, I had multiple roles that I took on. I worked on a lot of initiatives. So when I initially started off with them, I started off, so I was part of the COVID batch, and I hadn't even joined Christ when I started off with them. So I was just finishing up at 12. We were in that weird transition phase, so much uncertainty. I hadn't got admission yet. I had no clue what I was doing. And I just joined them for a very simple internship, 1 month internship. It was a new organization, and we were going to be, they were looking for ambassadors basically who can spread the word, who can tell people about what we do. And since they were focused in the age group of 18 to 25 to target people like us, they wanted people who were in the age group to help them become ambassadors, because who better to hear it from than their target audience itself.
Right.
So that's how I started off with them. It was a simple role. I used to make social media posts for them, and I used to share word. I used to talk to my friends and things like that. But eventually, in the course of, let's say, a month of doing this role, one, I realized I loved the job, and two, they realized I was good at what I did, and we continued. And I started off saying 1 month, and I worked with them for 3 years, a little more than that actually. So it was a lovely journey. And I think in terms of roles, I've done social media with them. Then I went on to lead their alliances team. I used to handle collaborations and partnerships for the organization. I also went on to co-lead the technology team, where we worked on a project with JP Morgan Chase. After this, I also had the opportunity to work on 2 more projects with them. So I think one was, so there were 2 skilling initiatives, and the organization basically works towards helping women stay and persevere in their careers. And so we had these skilling initiatives. We organized one with Google and NASCOM Foundation, another one with IBM. And I project managed the one with Google, and I was an operations manager on the other one with IBM. So those are different roles that I had, just to name them. But I think underneath all of this, for me, what drove me to do this, and I did all of this with college, like you pointed out, was just that realizing through the actions that I was making, through the things that I was getting to do as part of my daily job, I could see in front of my eyes the lives of the people we were impacting, the skills we were being able to give to them. And that was very fulfilling. And that's what pushed me to do more of it.
And I feel like many students should, take something along with their college, because it is the time for you to explore and experiment as much as possible.
Absolutely. I don't think there's anything which should hold you back. If you feel like there's something you really like and there's something you want to explore, what's the worst that can happen? It's not going to work out. You're not really losing anything. So no harm in giving things that shot. And if you see an opportunity come your way, always say yes to it.
Do you feel the social life was impacted doing all of this, just being productive, just being doing work?
Absolutely not. You ask any friend of mine, their first question is how is this girl still managing to have everything look nice on Instagram, still managing to have things look good on LinkedIn as well, and still you will see me running around campus all the time. You will still see me getting good grades. And so I don't think any of that has been impacted. Social life has been great. I had some wonderful friends. I've gone out, had some great times. We've done everything a regular Christlight would do. We've gone parties. We've sat together. We've watched movies. We've done a lot of things. And most of us lived around here. We'd go to each other's houses. It was a lot of fun. I don't think there was anything that hampered social life. And I think what went was finding a way to do it along with this. So I spent a very significant amount of time in the library. But I also made sure that I found friends in the library. So I was socializing there as well. Mm-hmm. I was doing more than what I just had to work. So I'd have friends, we'd have conversations. It was good. So just find a way to balance both of it. I think that's what's important. But no, nothing should suffer, and nothing did suffer.
Do your own thing, but do not miss out on other things as well. Okay. So you mentioned that you worked with Google, and because you are a strong woman in tech, would you want to share some insights on how did you get this project, and what was the experience about working with one of the biggest companies of the world?
All right, so this was an initiative through Aspire for her. And in the course of that, I was offered a chance to work on this. It was a skilling initiative that we had. So Google has a lot of these courses that they have, professional courses that they do offer in terms of certain specific skills. And what they wanted to do was to target X number of individuals and enable them to be skilled with all of these certification courses. And since Aspire for Her had this large community of women who they could reach out to, and this was done as part of the CSR wing, so NASSCOM Foundation was helping us out with it. That's how the project came to us, and as part of my role in the project, of course, as a woman in tech, this is something that called out to me a lot because I, for one, understand the requirement for people to be up to date with all skills in the market today. And I mean, in a world that is so rapidly advancing with AI and everything taking over and being so disruptive, there is no way one can stay sustainably ready for the future till you're constantly learning, till you're constantly upskilling. And I work in technology today, and there's not a day when I don't learn. There's not a day when I don't chat GPT, but there's also not a day when there's not something new that I've picked up. Because without that, I feel like we'll all reach a point of stagnation. So, in terms of being a woman in tech, I think it was an opportunity for me to be an advocate for things that I really strongly believed in, but also it was an opportunity for me to be on the receiving end to understand that here's what the world out there needs, and here's how I can equip myself for it. And in the course of it, I also had the chance to give two people an opportunity to understand and learn. So I think that's how all of it played out very well.
What do you think people around you, because all of them are in the tech industry, how do you guys take AI?
How do we take AI? Don't ask me controversial questions, but I don't think AI is taking our jobs away. I genuinely do not think that. But I think AI is very disruptive, and naturally, with so much of transition coming into play, it's going to be a very huge factor in our lives. It's not going to be all of our life, but if you can use it the right way to enable your daily tasks to become more efficient and optimized, for you to be able to use it to your advantage and know how to do it right, know how to do it ethically, then I think it's a huge boon for us. It's a lot of tasks that otherwise would have taken me 4 hours, I can now do it in 40 minutes. And I think that way it's a huge benefit. But if you know to use it right, then it's in great hands.
But have you seen people being replaced by AI around you as of now?
Not really.
Not really. And do you think in the future it can happen to some extent, because it's reducing a lot of time and a lot of hard work?
So it's reducing effort more so. I would say it's optimizing work. And when it's optimizing work, it's giving you a chance to be better at your job. So if I was going to spend 4 hours to do one task, and now if AI can help me do that in 1 hour, I have 3 hours to do something much better, to use it on a better job so that I can deliver better output. So it's not really going to take away stuff from you. It's going to give you more time. And if you know how to use that time well, it's just going to help you get better. So yes.
Oh, right. So I think there's a lot of debate around AI replacing humans and all of that is going on. But everybody has their own opinions, and significantly it depends. So you have been a public speaking trainer. Would you want to talk about some public speaking tips for the viewers?
Sure. So I think when I started off, like everybody else, I've also gone on stage and forgotten my name. I was very normal that way. I was also scared of being on stage. I had the same amount of stage fright that most of us here have. But in terms of tips, I think what helped me personally, so when I started off, the first time I went on stage was when I finished up my badminton summer camp. And they just asked, I was a little kid. I don't even know how old I was, probably 10, 12. I was a little kid, and I was going up on stage to take my certificate of completion from the camp. And they asked if some of us would like to talk about our experience in the camp. And my coach said, yeah, Sneha will talk. So he told me this like a few days before. And I remember the entire 2 nights before that, I sat in front of the mirror and I practiced and practiced and practiced. I wrote down my script line to line. I learned every word of it. And I said, this is exactly what I'm going to say and no scope of messing up. So that's how I started. But today, I don't even think I prepared a thing for this. We're here, we're just having a conversation. Most of the times when I walk up on stage, it's the audience that enables me to share what I share. So in terms of how you can become better at public speaking, one thing to focus on clearly is your communication. For you to understand that when you are here to share something, when you're here to talk, you know your topic best. And no matter what somebody else is saying, you're here because you are good at what you do. So the first thing is just to have that confidence in yourself that enables a lot of fear to go away. The second, never let your audience demotivate you. We all know there are people out there who want to say, oh, you're not good, or you're not doing something right. Peeth piche har kisi ko bolna hota hai. Do not let that demotivate you. I mean, no one's going to throw tomatoes at you from over there. So it's still okay. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to laugh at you. They might pass a few rude remarks. Again, back to first point, remember you know what you're doing is best and have that faith in yourself. This enables a lot of the fear to go away, allows you to go up on stage a lot more confidently, or any platform for that matter. I think the third is just for you to practice. We weren't born when we came in, and we were doing it this way. So you learn with time, and always be open to feedback. Ask people in your audience what worked, what didn't work. Ask people you trust, ask mentors, ask teachers, ask friends. And when they give feedback, incorporate that feedback into what you're doing, because every opportunity is an opportunity for you to improve and grow. And I mean, I don't think I'm perfect yet. And every new time I go up on stage, there is something I pick up and there is something I will use to make my next speech better. So for anybody who's interested to go to look into public speaking, to be on stage, to be able to share their thoughts, start with basic confidence, basic communication, and I think just keep at it. There is going to be a time when it's not going to work out. There is going to be a time when people don't like what you're saying, when it didn't really hit the audience the way you wanted it to, but do not lose hope. Keep at it. It's going to take a while. It took me 3 years to be where I am today, and I still remember like my first set of trainings that I did. I myself didn't like what I trained. I was standing there, I'm like, what am I telling you all? So it comes with time, but just because you're not happy with it, do not let it go.
Amazing. That's quite interesting because, when you derive your motivation from the audience and you want to provide value to them, that makes a lot of sense because you are there for them. And when you talk to them about them, and it's like, when you are putting your best, you eventually give the best speech.
That is true. And I think for me, what helped was also just realizing that when I was training as well, I was the same age as the people I was training. So the ability to have that peer-to-peer connect, and this is kept extrapolated. So today I train people who are, let's say, 25 years older than I am. But what I realized when I started training people in my own age group was that when I'm able to connect to you, and when you feel like I'm not here to give you gyan, you are automatically inclined to listen to me. So for me to be able to share experiences, for me to be able to give you stories, and for me to be able to make you understand that मैं भी normal हूँ, मैं थोड़ी सी पागल हूँ, but उसके अलावा मैं भी काफी normal हूँ और मैं भी वही चीजें करती हूँ जो आप करते हो. So when it came with that for us, and when you're able to draw that connection with your audience, it's automatically easier for you to deliver.
How has your corporate experience been? Do employees take you in such a way that कि फिर से कौन आ गया बोलने, or why should we listen to her? Mm-hmm. So how has that been?
I think my experience has been lovely. It's been a year since I've been in corporate now. I've worked in 2 companies and both of them have been absolutely gorgeous. I've always had an apprehension that most places where I go, I'm usually one of the youngest, and मैं बहुत ज़्यादा बोलती हूँ. So I've always had the fear कि will I not be taken seriously because of my age, because the fact that I'm a little too loud, a little too always visible. But I think that's never been the case. Like in terms of the way it's been embraced, I feel like intergenerationality has been a very, very huge thing in all of our companies these days. And I have the opportunity to work with people who are a lot older than me. I work with people my own age. I work with people who are somewhere midway between the senior and me. And again, I think it's a simple ability to communicate effectively, to know what you're doing, to not shy away to reach out for help. And again, as long as you love what you're doing, you will find a way to make it work. So my corporate experience has been absolutely amazing. I love the teams I've worked with. I love the people I've got to meet. And I naturally love my job. So yes.
That's amazing. So by the way, guys, Sneha has been an award winner as well in the best speaker category. Would you want to tell more details about it and how it's
Sure. So I think usually when like people like you bring it up is when I kind of realize. So usually people like do these introductions when I go up on stage, and I'm still not very used to it because like when I was in college, I'm usually the one introducing speakers. We organize fests, we're introducing speakers. That's usually what I'm doing. And these days, when people are introducing me and giving these illustrious introductions, I'm like, wow, yeah, maine to kafi kuch kar liya. It's very adorable to see that. But yeah, coming back to the awards, I had the opportunity to do a session for Women Tech Network. They're a global organization, and they have their annual awards that happens, and they also have an annual global conference that they host. I was invited to speak as part of that conference, and I did a session on storytelling for personal branding. And that session was what led to my nomination for the award. So I was nominated in two categories. One was Speaker of the Year, and the other one was for the Community Awards. And I think it was just recognizing all of the work that I've done, and in terms of just my endeavors as a public speaker, the kind of training that I've been doing, the avenues I've had the chance to speak at, it was just that. And I mean, the community loved what I did, so I also happened to have a chance to win the award in the Community Awards category.
That's really amazing.
Thank you.
That's really wonderful. So, who has been your source of inspiration throughout this journey? Whatever you have been doing, who inspired you to actually get started and keep on moving?
So I don't think there's one person that I could probably give you as an inspiration. There have been a lot of people. I've had people that I've looked up to at every stage of my life, and I've had people that I look up to every day. So starting with, I think, my mom. So my mom does a lot of this. So like it's a very running joke in my house that if my mom and I are together in the house, there will always be excessive noise. So when I'm in office, the house is calm. Or if it's just me in the house and my mom's outside for work, the house is calm. But the second one of us enters the house, you know it, because there's going to be an explosive amount of noise. So I think a lot of it from her, starting from my love for saris. From the time I was like 3, my earliest memory is of watching my mom go into office in a sari, and of always knowing her as a working woman. So I think it came from there for me to have understood and to have known that I always aspire to have a career, and it's something that I want to go ahead and do. So I think starting with that to people around me who do what they do, people on LinkedIn, people I get to meet at conferences, people who have been there and done that, people whose books I've read, people who I happen to see videos of. I think almost all of it. So I mean, even from you. So every interaction that I have, there's always something to take away. And all of this that you're doing with the podcast, the books you've written, it's absolutely amazing. So I think sources of inspiration have been several, including my manager, my boss, and the CEO and co-founder and founder at Aspire for her, Madhura Dasgupta Sinha. So I think she's also been a huge inspiration, the kind of work that she does. She's an incredible leader. And there's so much I've learned from her and the way she does work. So yeah, I think every person that I speak to, every individual that I've had the chance to work with, that's been something I've learned, and they've always left me inspired.
Wow, that's amazing, because I think every conversation actually leads you to learn a lot.
Right.
All right. So, would you want to tell something about, what's your personality, how it's been developed over the years, and what are your day-to-day learning capacities?
All right. So I think in terms of my personality, it's always been twofold. So there is one end of it which is entirely supplemented by my left brain, and there's one end of it that's supplemented by my right brain. And I'm always trying to draw a parallel between the two and to make sure that they're both matching, so that I don't go mad and the people around me don't go mad. So I've been a numbers person. I've been somebody who loves logic, who loves analytics. I've also loved anything to do with people. I'm an absolute social bird, and I will do anything for conversations with people, because that's what really brings me joy in life. So my personality is usually driven by both of this. In terms of what I do, I think it's constant learning from one way or the other for me to always find a way to keep both ends of these nourished and happy. So I look out for opportunities to keep learning, to keep growing. I attend a lot of conferences, I attend a lot of events, I do courses when I have the time to. When I'm working, I try exploring new things outside of my work. When I'm training, I try to always get new content into what I'm training. I like to talk to people who are doing what I'm doing. I also like to talk to people who are listening to me to say, did you like what I'm giving you, or is there something more that you want? So I think a lot of this for me boils down to just conversations, to people, and to being somebody who is here for people, is here to make connections. And that is my base in terms of personality. Outside of this, I think, outside of being a chatterbox, I love food. I love poetry. I also absolutely enjoy, I think, going to places. I've not actually had the chance to travel a lot, but I do know that I want to travel the world. So I think here are a few other things. And yes, food, majorly food, chocolate.
That's wonderful. So, do you wish to have your own startup someday?
I haven't thought about it, but now that you ask me, I will think about it. But yes, I do aspire to work in the space of product. So I do know that I eventually want to get into a product-based company, and I intend to deliver value to businesses. So I intend to have, like I said, left brain, right brain. So I always want to have creative and people-oriented skills to match with my analytical skills. So I want to work in the space of product analytics so that I can work on delivering value to people, and I can see that whatever I'm doing, here's how people are using it, here's what they like, here's what they don't like, and here's how I can improve what I'm giving them. So that's something I do know, to eventually want to work with products and for products for people. But startup, well, think about it.
Okay, so you write as well. You love poetry, you love storytelling. How's that aspect of your life, writing and all of that?
Yes, so I think writing was something that began when I was 13. I started off, so it was a very conflicting journey for me. So I was one of those kids who would not read. So like my mom would get these books and she'd like write dates on top of the pages saying, "Aaj 3 page padhoge." So that's how I started reading books. It was a very forced effort. But then, like every other kid, I had my Nancy Drew phase, and then I had my Enid Blyton phase, and then I had my like the famous five and all of that phase, and that's how I got into reading. And then there's been no looking back. Like now it's an issue at home. Mom's like, "Why did you buy another book when there are 5 books you haven't read?" So my writing, I think, stemmed from my love for books, for literature, for words. I still read very extensively. I read all kinds of work, and that's how I started writing too. Something very small. I realized that I had creative inclination. I wanted to put it out somewhere, and I started by writing short stories. We used to, in school we had these essays, right, that we had to write for our exam papers. So it was there that I initially started putting my creativity out into writing these very fascinating essays that my English teachers loved. And I kept building on that. And then I used to attend these events, like we had the Bangalore Literature Festival that happens every year. So I attended these. I would listen to writers. I would listen to their journeys. It was very fascinating. And I slowly kept building on it. I also had, eventually when I realized that I loved writing so much, I also wrote down my first short story, which is now on Amazon. It's called Muskan, the Story of Her Smile. And I think what continued for it was just, I started writing characters which were very humanized, because like I said, I love conversations, I love people. So for me, writing was an outlet to bring that aspect of me come into life, to be able to have so many versions of myself. When I'm writing, I could be a 5-year-old, I could be a 50-year-old, I could be a mother, a wife, a sister, I could be Sneha, I could be anything. And it was that joy. And it kept developing. I finally moved into poetry about 2 years ago. Poetry was a very COVID thing that I decided to come across. And I realized I love expressing through poetry too, because it's a very niche art, but also enables you to say a lot with less. And that's something I really love. I slowly started performing poetry too now. I've been doing some open mics and things like that. So just again, enables me to connect with people and to share what's on all of our minds.
Among all of this, since we're exploring a lot around writing poetry, storytelling techniques, and short stories, what do you think fascinates you the most? What is your niche?
I don't think I have a niche yet, but what fascinates me the most, I think, is poetry. It's the ability to just be extremely concise, but I could be writing the happiest of words and still have the scariest of emotions behind it. So, metaphors and oxymorons and things like that, which I get to use through poetry, that's been my most fascinating experimentation.
What is the latest piece you wrote?
The latest piece I wrote, So, I do have a poetry page on Instagram, so I've been writing a little bit over there. I think I wrote a few pieces, one on the concept of home and how home means different things to all of us. And I wrote another piece on beauty and how beauty in general is perceived to be something, but is not necessarily that. So yeah, those are two of my very recent pieces that I absolutely love.
Wow. Would you want to narrate here one of them? This is a wonderful platform. I think the viewers might be very happy to listen to it because I myself do poetry and I'm into writing, so I would love to hear from you.
Sure, let me see if I can narrate one of the shorter pieces.
And those are wonderful topics, hope, beauty, all of that.
All right, so this is a piece called Flaws. It's on the concept of beauty, and it goes, are all flaws ugly? Is flawless the only beauty? Is being flawed a trait that makes you unacceptable? Or is being flawed the key to always being accepted? But yet again, I'm lost. Does flawless really exist? Or is it just an acceptance of one's flaws and imperfections that makes you flawless? Is broken always destroyed? Can indestructible never be broken? Do cracks have to signify weakness? Can't they imply strength? Is a veil of immortality all it takes for never to be considered broken? For I might as well have crevices filled by kintsugi inexperience than a veil that hides my mortality. Because broken need not be the end, but it's sure a perfect beginning. Are tears a disgrace? Is a smile the only key to poise? If defending my emotions to portray a picture of grace is the only way to escape the disconcerting glances, I might as well taint the glass of grace, for elegance by concealing is as little a portrait of grace as a deceitful victory.
Wow, that's so wonderful. I think the messaging which this poetry has, it's like really powerful. The way you said broken and all of that. So it's really powerful.
Thank you so much.
That's wonderful, and thank you so much for coming here, sharing your wonderful poetry, your journey, your experiences, everything. And I really hope that it is very insightful for the audience because I myself have been into the space of content and writing, all of that, and I also look up to people who are very confident when it comes to communication. So I look up to you as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I really hope something what we share, the audience has something to take away from it. And yes, always happy to connect, always happy to keep the network growing.
Right. I'll give your specific social media accounts in the description below for you guys to check it out. Thank you so much, Sneha, once again.
Thank you.